America, this is Mark A back in effect. Mark A stay in effect. Mark A will always be in effect.
Life is a bus, so the service a must. They make you turn up your phone before you get off the bus and make you wanna go home. Dog, there's nowhere to run, so you must sleep through day zero to get to day one. And 9 weeks later, the basic shit.
What's up, America? This is Mark A back in effect. Stay in effect. It always will be in effect. And then today we have a special guest. We got Dr. Squared. Dr. Squared, okay, doctor and doctor, a husband and wife doctor in the United States military, Colonel Scott and Major. Promotable now? You promotable yet?
Not yet. Soon though.
Soon though. Colonel Major Williams, okay, they are therapists in the United States military. And today, I know we talking about therapy, right? But this is my therapy. Today's therapy is Uncle Nearest. Uncle Nearest. There's no stores near you. Okay. This episode is brought to you by KP Lux. Check it out. Women's clothing line. Go online. It's on my Facebook page and everything else. Just check it out. And basically, hey, it's Christmas time coming up. Husbands, check this website. It's not too expensive. All right. And we also have another special guest here today. Is my man, my mentor, Command Sergeant Major Retired House. You all know him as the Brick House, okay? And my co-host, my man, my mentor, my right-hand man, D. Brooklyn from Beyond the Reverb. All right? So let's make a toast. We alive, we well, we about to enjoy, we about to learn, and we about to give back. Peace.
Salute.
Salute.
Let's get it going on, doctors. So talk to me where it all began. Let's talk to me. Charles, talk to me. Where it all began?
Oh, wow. Where did it all begin? Really, for me, it probably began years ago, probably around 1986 when I first joined the sheriff's office. When I left the Army the first time, I left the Army in 1986 as a E4P. Then I actually took a job with the sheriff's office I stayed with the sheriff's office in Broward County, which is Fort Lauderdale area. I stayed there for about 5 years. And, during that time, I kind of noticed that I had a skill set that was not there, or I lacked the skill set. And that was to sort of help people when it came to like domestic violence or, any kind of thing that requires social services. So cops don't get trained in that. So that's when I started getting that passion for, I think I want to be a psychologist. So once that was over, I just started matriculating, and then 2022, I'm in Fort Carson. And that's it.
That's right. And how about you, Dr. Two? Dr. Number one, number one and number two. There you go.
Her story is much more interesting.
I grew up in a crazy family.
Okay.
And I need to know why. Why these kids so crazy? I would just keep it 100 with you. I grew up in a crazy family and needed to know what's going on with these folks. But I knew ever since I was in the 3rd grade that I wanted to be a psychologist. My cousin actually had mentioned the word. That was the first time I ever heard it. And she was kind of like my role model. And so I pursued school, and at that time she didn't. And here you go.
She was a professional student.
Okay.
Which means I had no job.
Professional student? So we had a Dr. Sabat. We had Dr.
I'm sorry, me not rolling over
here. That's for real.
So how many years of go ahead, no, how many years of education that you took to get to where we at right now?
Wow. So I had about 15 years after high school education.
Okay. How about you, man?
Yeah, about the same. About 12 to 15 years after high school. Bachelor's, master's, and we both went back and got 2 master's degrees. So we got our doctorate degrees, and then we went back and got another master's degree after we got the doctorate. So we've been in school a long time.
Something I wouldn't want to put on anybody. I would tell people that's too long. I mean,
Too long.
It's long.
It's long.
Yeah, we had a guest. We had a guest on here that did 25 years of education. 25 years of education. Yep.
Wow.
And you know, and 2 doctorate degrees and 5 master's degrees.
Oh,
Yeah.
You guys know him. You guys know him.
But you know what though, Mark? I'm gonna tell you, education, when you really find something that you're good at, it becomes addictive. And you want to know more and you know more about it. And it's sad to say, I always tell people, I was always a woman with an opinion. But without my degree, I was just that. I was a woman with an opinion. But it's sad to say, when I became a doctor, I became an expert. The same person, same opinion, but it's the credentials that made the difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's a dangerous woman right there. Every woman got an opinion anyway.
Hey, listen, let me say, I do not win no arguments in this household.
Yes.
You know, I come to realize that, you know, a wise man told me it takes 2 to argue, if I'm not mistaken.
It does.
You know, a wise man told it takes 2 to argue. You know, and you know, so if one's arguing, the other one's not. One's emotional, one's logical thinking. Then one person's arguing. That's the emotional portion. The other person's thinking logical. So one of us got to be logical.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's the logical one because I ain't tell y'all I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. So enough said, right? I get in my feelings.
I'm sorry, I had to make jokes. That's how you do?
That's how she does it.
Oh, somebody been down to Baltimore before.
For a while.
Oh yeah, I've been down. Hey, check this out. I've been down to, you know, what's the name of that spot down in Baltimore, man? Bennigan's? Is it Bennigan? Not Bennigan's. What's the name of that club down there? This down the spot down there. It was used to be a club down there. I used to go down there all the time.
Down now.
Everything closed.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
No, seriously. Especially in the neighborhood, no. It's just like, no.
Exactly. But they
got it up by the stadiums and everything. That's about it.
Yeah. But I'll tell anybody, he's the logical part of me. And I think that's what really makes us work. Because to balance each other out in that aspect.
Now, now that you know you guys are therapists, and the last say 10 years or so, like this product came up with PTSD. You know, PTSD. Like a lot. I know for me personally, you know, I was diagnosed with PTSD, and like that put me to I was like I couldn't believe it. You know, I mean, like I seen people throughout my military career have it, and they say they were diagnosed with it, and I seen some of them like this kept going on, but some of them they was thinking differently, like they just didn't understand. When I first, you know, found out, I didn't know, and the doctor told me straight up, no, you don't have PTSD? Okay, let's see now. He put out a book and started basically reading off these different disclaimers of PTSD, depression, anxiety, and I'm like, holy shit, what the fuck is going on? Like I'm like, what? That's me? You know? Then I was going through that process of trying to fix it, and I couldn't fix it. There was nothing I could fix. It was like way out of my reach. And I'm like, you know, you can't fix it. You got to cope with it. Okay. Now, like, what is the average? Like, what is the norm for you guys? Like when a soldier or a patient come in there and then like say, no, I don't have that or whatever. How do you guys process that through them? You know.
You want to go first? I'll let him go first.
Well, I mean, first is varying degrees of PTSD. Chronic, you know, and then it's acute. But, you know, I've seen people that, you know, I got to give a double take. Like, do you really have PTSD? But then there are those that I've observed that I'm like, this guy has PTSD. And, you know, it's so glaring at the first visit. Most of the time, I do not diagnose that on the first visit. It takes some time for me to get to know you. Because, I mean, you know, it's also personality-based to some degree, too, I think. So, but then there are those that have been through many things, and it's just glaring. You can see the anger. You can see perspiration on their face as they talk. You can just see it in them, and it's like, wow, this is extraordinary. So for those, I try to manage expectations. Like, this is never going away. You have to learn through our help to manage symptoms. When you are triggered by certain things, you have to come up with a plan of how you are going to manage that. My wife is a trauma expert. That's one of her niches besides psychopharmacology. So she could probably expound upon what I just said.
So I probably am a little bit long-winded, so cut me off. But
no, just talk. This is it.
And this is real talk. Me personally, I saw PTSD before I joined the Army. I just didn't know what it was. I'm from the inner city of Baltimore. And oftentimes within the past 20 some years, we have correlated PTSD with combat, right? Mm-hmm. But it's not just with combat. You just don't develop PTSD because you have been to combat, right? And actually, research shows a very small select number of people will develop PTSD, right? So you ask, okay, what do we do when a person comes in and it's hard for them to accept that they have PTSD? I think that I'm a very unconventional psychologist, right? When you come in, I'm going to keep it straight 100 with you, okay? And my thing is this. When your leg is broke, you go to the medical doctor, right? You go to the medical doctor because you're having symptoms. If a limb is broke, it's swollen, right? It's not moving the way that it's designed to move. And so you gotta either recalibrate, they gotta reset the bone. And that's all we're doing. We're resetting. Now, with that being said, you may not be the person that you was before.
You're not.
And that's a good thing. And I'm gonna tell you why is it a good thing. Because if you're gonna be the person you was before, then how are you going to be able to change your perspective to shift into this new normal that you have now faced? You understand? You understand what I'm saying? And so I think that's the first part of the denial. Being able to break it down. What is PTSD? It really shouldn't even be called PTSD because it's not a disorder. It's just your reaction to an extraordinary situation. We go through our lives every day. More so now than ever, we see more traumatic events happening in our society than I would say than we did when we were coming up, right? Within the last, I would say 10 years or so. But when you're seeing a dead body, when you have to kill somebody, those are not ordinary things. That's not the ordinary. And so, of course, I expect you, the psyche, to have a response to that because that's not something that your psyche or your mind is relatively used to. We don't necessarily go down the street like, oh, yeah, I'm going to see a dead body today. You understand what I'm saying? And so now your psyche has to adjust to the new normal. How do I begin to cope? You mentioned the word cope. How do I begin to cope with the new me? Because this has changed me. I deployed. When I came home on R&R, I remember my mother said to me, she said, you're different. And I told her, I said, I should be. I lost a good significant, a large part of my hearing when I deployed. But I was supposed to be different because I saw things that I had never seen before. In the trauma base, seeing soldiers die. You understand what I'm saying? So I think to sum it up is when you are able to articulate and break down, come to where the person is, come to where they are without using all of the big words and all of that, but just come down and say, look, this is what's going on with you. Now let me show you how to cope and to get through it because you'll get through it. I always say you'll win if you don't quit.
That's it. And that's one of the keys that I realized itself is like, that's why I come up with that word, marquee, back in effect, stay in effect, and always will be in effect. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, you're relevant. You're always going to be relevant. You just, now that you realize something, you know what I mean? I'm back in effect because something I realized and I'm basically processing through my head to cope with, right? And to, like you said, to win, to win that battle. Staying in effect is that I'm going to continue doing that, but I'm also relevant because I'm doing it for my family, you know, and I always will be in effect because I'm going to leave behind a legacy of the good mark, not the bad mark, the good mark, not the going to the field and being away from the family, not that I'm going to be around my family. That's why I came up with that space, you know. Now, most people that you see is mostly more combat armed soldiers or more support soldiers, because that's it. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm thinking it might be a difference because the combat armed soldiers are a little bit more because they see a little bit more because they're out there than a soldier that's a support element.
You'll be surprised, but I have seen more soldiers who have pre-existing trauma, childhood trauma, not necessarily combat, but childhood trauma.
And I think by having those childhood traumas, going to war exacerbates that.
Yeah.
Because so what I've seen was people that had fractured childhoods. You know, mother wasn't there, or she was barely there, father wasn't there, or just living in that inner city, seeing death, you know, going into combat. You would think that that's a protective factor, that, okay, I've seen these things, but not so fast. Sometimes seeing things back to back to back kind of re-injures them, or what we call exacerbates certain things.
Like a snowball effect.
Right. Yeah. Very rarely will people develop PTSD while in combat. It always, for the most part, happens after they return back to us, garrison environment. That's kind of when we see it. That third or fourth month, you'll start seeing symptoms. Not able to sleep, having that REM deficiency. You know, we should go through at least 3 cycles of REM sleep. And oftentimes those soldiers never get to that. They may go through one, where it's just very fragmented. Waking up at night, checking doors, or on guard duty, things of that nature, just to make sure nobody's coming in. And it doesn't seem rational to most people, but to them, that's a rational response. Like, I am protecting my family now. And so they get stuck with being physically in the U.S., but mentally back in combat.
Yeah.
Well, they have time to reflect too.
Exactly.
That's where I think the delayed reaction is right. Now they have time to reflect, because you're just reacting in combat.
Right. Exactly. That muscle memory is kicking in. But you know what? I'm coming out with a book entitled "The Enemy in Me."
Ooh.
Because with PTSD and or any other psychiatric condition, even with depression and anxiety, right? It's almost as if you're fighting within yourself. When you think about PTSD, you know, the guilt that comes along with it. Why is it that I'm so on edge all the time? Why I'm so hypervigilant? And you begin to question you.
Yeah.
And then there comes that isolation. No, I don't even want to be around nobody.
Yep.
So it's the enemy in me that you're fighting. And then that's when therapy becomes, now I am a proponent of medication, but I'm also a proponent of therapy as well, because therapy helps to peel back the onion. And it helps you to take that mirror and go like this. It hurts. It hurts. But I tell you what, it's like all the other times that you're going along, you know, you guys can relate to this. It's like going on a ruck march, but you haven't packed your rucksack right. And so, you know, when you don't pack your rucksack right, then what? Stuff starts popping out and it's uncomfortable. Well, that's like
anxiety. That's when the anxiety comes in effect. That's when the anxiety comes in.
What I'm saying, exactly. And that's where therapy becomes so powerful, because we're going to unpack that rucksack, baby, and we're going to deal with it together. I ain't going to put you out in the ocean and leave you there. I'm not going to open up a wound that I can't sew back up.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? Yeah.
And you know, like some people, you know, I've noticed, you know, and I'm speaking on just my personal experience with this. And when I was going through, because I was in a low place at one particular time, and what I did, I used this to basically soothe my pain.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and at times, you know, like to go to sleep. You know, once I realized, you know, because in the military, you know, I consider this as an NCO, senior non-commissioned officers. You know, we are all fixers. We fix everybody else's problems. You know what I mean? And we just dismiss our own problem. And
but even as men, Mark, men, you are socialized to be a fixer.
I was just about to go there.
Yes.
As a man, your job is to protect. And, okay, there's a problem. How do I do this? Well, okay, you come home from combat. Okay, you got this, and this.
Yeah.
Okay, MDMP. How do we fix this?
Exactly.
Yep. What's the risk assessment? And we're gonna go ahead and handle this. The alternatives, we're gonna go ahead and handle this. But when it's yourself, and you looking at yourself in the mirror, you can't do that. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to do that.
Right.
Yes.
You know,
and then also what tends to happen is you come back home, your spouse has developed a battle rhythm without you. So now you want to go there and integrate yourself into her or his battle rhythm, and it's turmoil. They're like, "Hey, I got this. I don't need you." You know. So now you're trying to figure things out. Where do I fit in? So now you got the guilt.
Now there's resentment too.
Right.
Yes.
Irritability. All of those things start to creep up on you.
Yeah. You know, and you know, that's just my personal experience, you know, and every day, you know, you deal with it. You know, you just like every day is gonna be a better day. Tomorrow's gonna be better than the day. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna try to figure out the best person I could possibly be. Now, what most of the people, you know, after they retire or they, you know, medically boarded out the military and stuff like that, you know, I believe that's a very crucial time, especially the first couple of years. Is very crucial because that's my opinion. You know, you got to be very careful on how you think, because now I realize that we don't have the same things in common as outside society, right? So I can't just sit down and talk to like my cousin or my family members or whatever, or my homeboys in New York City, or you know, about the certain things I went through, because we didn't have the same thing. So you feel alienated out of that, and you're like, okay, what do I talk about? You know, I don't want to talk about Kanye West. I don't want to talk about, because he ain't important to me. I don't want to talk about what happened with Kyrie Irving, because that's not important to me. What's important to me is these soldiers doing this, or now it's important to me, like, oh my God, I don't have nothing in common with these guys. Right?
Exactly.
It's very difficult.
Crazy. Mark, when I came home on R&R, I remember I flew into, after I flew out of Kuwait, I flew into Atlanta Hartsfield Airport, right? And I'm just sitting there waiting for the next plane. But I felt a sense of anger that came over me that I'd never experienced before, because in my mind, I just left the combat zone where I literally was in a trauma bay watching this boy die. And I'm looking at these people go back and forth in the airport as if
nothing happened.
Was going on.
Yep.
I was so enraged in the inside, because I'm like, just 12 hours ago, this is where I was, and you walking around like everything is okay. So right, that sense of and that it just compounds the fact of now, where do I belong? We don't speak the same language.
Yeah.
Well,
when I joined the Army, I was like, oh my God, these people speak a different language. All the acronyms.
Well, this is the thing. I said it before. As far as the PTSD and the trauma and what we go through, as opposed to what the family goes through, as opposed to what society goes through. And I said it, and I'm gonna is just the way I feel. I feel, honest to God, in my heart, that the families actually have it worse than we do in combat, because we know what's going on. They're in the dark. Whatever FRG gives them, which is, come on, we know how that is. They're not giving them any information, real information. So they're living in the dark. So they have to, they're living in their own PTSD in itself. And a lot of the soldiers coming back don't understand that. And so basically, I got my shit, you got your shit, and we meet in the middle, and it's a collision course.
Right.
Yeah, that's a very excellent point. What we find to help is for spouses to also join their service members in PTSD treatment. There's a certain psychoeducation for the spouses to understand. This is what your service member is going to go through. Right. This is what you can do to help them. When you see that they are triggered, you need to do A, B, and C. So it's important. We find that the outcomes are better when the spouses are included in treatment. We also find that when the spouses are not, it's a longer, more difficult road.
Now,
I have a question. I understand that when you talk about that program, having the spouses included, what happens if you don't have a spouse but you have kids?
Yes.
You left your kids with your family members. Now you come back. You have your kids. It's just you. And then I'm giving you another instance. You the senior guy. You the sergeant major.
Yes. I've treated sergeant major.
All you do is you can't talk to anyone. Everything you can't break down for your kids. You can't break down for no one. You can't break down for your unit. You can't break down for anyone. So
there's too much responsibility on your shoulders. I get it.
Yeah. How do you cope? Like it's difficult.
From my experience, transparency, I think, is healing in and of itself. To be able to say to a subordinate, of course, when the situation permits, I can identify with you, and this is what I'm doing. This is what has helped me. There are times in therapy where I self-disclose to my patients when it's appropriate, because there is a theory of what's called twinship, right?
Relatability.
Right. When I see that you the command sergeant major, but guess what? If I cut you, you're gonna bleed red just like I do. And if you can do it, I can do it. And and believe me, sergeant major, I know it takes a lot to make that first step. One of the things that I have found helpful is, therapy don't have to always be in the therapist's office.
I'm gonna be real. This is therapy for me right now. Not just because we have therapists on the panel. I'm just saying every time I'm on camera.
Right.
Exactly.
But I've had patients where I'm like, don't. I'll come to where you are. Because I get it. And I'm sure you have too. I get it where you can't come to me. But nobody said therapy got to be in the office.
And this is something that y'all know, but just having that NCO peer to even talk to. I mean, sometimes it's difficult to be transparent, but you will find that if you take that step, you'll find that you purge yourself of certain things. Like, okay, this is definitely helpful. Having that way as a sergeant major, there's certain things you just have to, as they say, suck it up and just say, that's just my weight because I'm sergeant major. And then there are those things that you can say, okay, I'm going to offload this on somebody else, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a spouse, whether it's, even your kids, when they get a certain age, you can frame things in a certain way to say, hey, this is what dad's going through. And so if you see me respond like this, it doesn't mean I don't love you. It just means I'm going through something. So that transparency will even draw you closer to your own children, because they see you as being human and not just Superman.
Right, exactly.
Like Superman is human too. So dad also has issues, and he's not afraid to really talk about, because guess what? You're teaching them how to deal with issues as well.
Exactly.
So when they become, of age, they know, well, dad did it like this, so this is how I'm going to do it, because I watched my daddy handle.
Holy shit! I guess I did the right thing, because I was so nervous. I took my son. He was like 10, 11 years old. I was living right outside of Philly at the time, and I didn't tell him everything. I didn't tell him like stories or nothing. I just said, hey, this is why I'm acting like this. This is. I'm not expecting you. I'm not expecting your sister. I'm not expecting your mother. Any of my friends that haven't been in the military, I don't expect them to understand either. So you're not alone in the misunderstanding of it. So I told him a couple things, like how I felt about a certain thing. I didn't tell him, like, I gave him the sugar-coated kid, 10, 11 years old. And when he was 16 years old, got to check for the wife, sorry. When he was 16 years old, he was like, wow, I get it now. I get it. And now he's 24. I just got off the phone with him like an hour ago. And he was like, I get it. I get it. Like with financial situations he's going through that were similar to me. And I try to, like, hey,
but that's
it's not easy.
We teach children in so many ways that are unsaid, and so when we're able to articulate that and say, for example, mommy's feeling a little sad today, and this is why. But of course, being able to talk at their level and, being able to sparse out how much do they need to know, what I mean?
Well, that's a different thing. I don't mean to interrupt, but
No worries.
I came into my son's life when he was 15 months old. When he was 15 months old, I could have a full conversation just like I'm having with you. With that said, the way I talked to him when I got married, when he was like 3 or 4, I'm trying to remember. It was a long time ago. I don't talk to him any different. It's just the characteristics of what's being, not the characteristics, but the content of what we're talking about is a little bit more in depth. That's it.
Exactly. But we learn from our parents how to handle stress.
Yes.
We even learn from our parents how to argue.
I agree.
Right? Exactly. And so it's incumbent upon us, I believe, as parents, to teach our children how to manage stress, because it ain't going away.
But all stress ain't good. All stress ain't bad stress now.
No, it's not. No, it's
all
not.
All stress ain't bad stress.
That's
all
right.
Stress ain't bad stress. All stress ain't bad stress. That's why I used to tell my soldiers all the time, 90% of stress is uncontrolled stress. No, 10% of your stress is controlled. And they're like, what are you talking about, First Sergeant? I'm like, well, if you wake up in the morning, if you go out and hang out all night, right, and you got formation in the morning, and you hang out until 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, you come to work drunk, or you tired, or whatever, you just created your own stress, right? Because you have formation in the morning, you have a responsibility, you have to come to work, you have to do your job, you have to do your job or whatever. And if you get up late, you brush your teeth, right? Then your breath stink. Then that's stress too. You know what I mean? That's serious. You don't take a shower after PT because you want to go to sleep before, because you went out all night and you want to take an hour or 2 nap and you don't get a shower, you gonna smell. So people gonna smell you. So that's controlled stress. You can control that. Don't go out the night before. Go out on the weekend. So you can control 10%. 90% of your stress is uncontrolled. You know, 90% of your stress is under control. So do you want somebody to control you 100% of the time, or do you want to have somebody control you 90% of the time? But you have 10%. You have 10% that you can control.
Right.
You know, that's the whole system.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Here it is. I'm a daggone. I was the first on at the time, and I'm sitting there telling them this, and then all of a sudden I get caught and like, you got PTSD, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I can't control this. Like, what am I doing? You know what I mean? I'm trying to control this. You know what I mean? You know, I'm like, oh, you know, you stuck. You stuck.
And you know, and
like
the problem with PTSD is control, because you do just exactly what you said. You try to control it.
Yeah.
You try to control it, and you can't. Control is the problem.
Yes. Yes.
Control,
yes.
avoidance. Something my wife said when she came back, she was angry. You know, we say this and we hear it, especially on this day. Happy Veterans Day.
Absolutely.
But one thing that I don't think they understand is that freedom really is not free. The things that you go through, anxieties, depressions, PTSD, that's the price of their freedom. You're going through that so they don't have to. So freedom ain't free. And I don't think most America really understands Veterans Day and really the essence of the things that veterans have gone through and the sacrifices that they have made. They say
sacrifice.
They appreciate it, they say it, but they don't really get it.
Yeah.
They don't really get it when you can't sleep at night. They don't really get it when you have night terrors. They don't really get it when you are depressed. They don't get it when you avoid going to Walmart and then go at 4 a.m. because you don't want to see people.
Right.
They don't get it.
Yeah.
They don't
You're
understand.
absolutely right. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's another thing too. Like, you know, like for instance, you know, Happy Veterans Day. You know, I say thank you. You know, continue paying your taxes because that's what's paying me right now. You know, you can thank me by continue paying your taxes. That's what I'll be telling them, right? You know, they look at me like, you know, because I'm tired of hearing Happy Veterans Day. You know what I mean? Like, you know, hey, you want to please me and say Happy Veterans Day? What I would say is treat people like a human being. Treat people like you want to be treated. Don't step on somebody's neck. Everybody, you know, I always say there's not 2 races or 3 races or 5 races that it says black, white, Caucasian, African American, all that. Treat everybody like a human race because that's one race.
Right.
If you treat everybody with respect and instead of trying to step on somebody's neck to get $1, you know what I mean? That's my thank you.
Yeah.
That's my thank you. You know what I mean? That's what my thank you. You want to go out and, you know.
That goes beyond race, though, because I see it a lot in the Black community. I grew up in a Black community around Black people, around Asian people. It was a melting pot. Anyways, I see people, because people tend to stick to their own kind, right? But if somebody has a business, who's supporting that business? People of like mind on a business frame of mind, not your friends, not your family. Most people is like, oh, what you doing that for? What you doing this for? What you doing that for? And it's like, because it's giving me peace. No matter what it is, as long as it's legal. That's all that should matter. But 9 times out of 10, I'm going to go with the young boys saying it. It's a lot of hating going on.
Yeah,
it is.
I mean, you know, that's what I see it. I just say it like that. You know, now, you know, what do you guys talking about? Like when people are coming out, like transitioning out of the military, especially suffer with this PTSD. Like, what is like one of your like recommendations or a few recommendations that you can give towards the audience today? Doctors.
You know, I have some thoughts about retirement. One is I can't wait till I get there. Lord.
Then you can hit the medicine like I do. You know what I mean?
You know.
Hey, he's only going back to what you said. You support the medication sometimes.
But not that.
I try to have you back.
They say that people die within the first 5 years of retirement if they don't remain active. But I think that retirement, especially from not just the military, but any job that you have given your life to, it's a divorce almost, because that's all you know. You know what I mean? That's all you know. And so it's not only, even in divorce, there's a certain sense of grief, unless you just absolutely didn't like the person at all. But, there's
I've been there. How many times, bro?
You'd be like, nah, I'm good. But, there's a certain amount of grief that goes on with retirement as well because of the separation. I'm separating from the familiar. I'm separating from the familiar. And not only that, I'm separating from something that I know I'm good at. You knew that you was good at being a soldier, right? And now my time has expired. So what does this say about me?